Hello, this is Shan Chandrasekhar welcoming you to another delightful part of our programming. As a part of our tribute to 100 years of Indian cinema, there's a young man who's making an outstanding contribution both through him and his family for the Indian film industry. It's none other than Harman Baweja. Here's an outstanding sample of this great young man in action. Take a look at this.
अगर मैं हर राशि की एक लड़की से मिलूं और अपने आप को 12 मौके दूं to fall in love.
आए जो निकट तू सभी के ही टिकट कट जाए रे हाँ
Harman, what a pleasure.
Thank you. Pleasure is mine.
Our congratulations on this new venture, which is, from what I understand, it's the first of its kind, tracing a 300-year-old history in 3D animation format.
Guru de naal naal, ek bhi singh jiunda na rahe.
ਹੁਣ ਦੱਸਾਂਗੇ ਦੁਸ਼ਮਣਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਸਿੰਘ ਸਵਾ ਲੱਖ ਦੇ ਬਰਾਬਰ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ
Tell me about this exciting new venture.
Well, there's so much to talk. It's been a rather long journey, to be very honest. It all started at a dinner table conversation between myself and my father. Obviously, my sister and my mother were present there. The typical family dinner once a week. And he started talking about, I think it was close to Gurpurav, about 5 years back, and we started talking about Sikhi and, and he just ended up saying that, there's something I've been wanting to do for years, Harman, is I want to make a film on Sikhism. I want to tell a story. And I was like, yeah, you've been saying it for years, and I've only been saying the same thing over and over again, that it's not going to be easy, because, there are lots of protocols to follow when it comes to the religion. And he was like, yeah, but when you come to the story of Chaar Sahibzaade, for me, it's not just about Sikh religion. For me, it's a story which spreads beyond Sikhism. It's strangely, it's actually the first time ever you probably heard of something like human rights. It dates back to 300 years, because that's where Sikhism was born from. It was born from, a community standing up for another community, which was being ostracized by yet another community. So it wasn't really a selfish act; it was a selfless act. And the martyrdom of these 4 sons was for someone else.
Wow.
At an age of 5, all the way up to the age of 18, for four sons to give up their lives for a community completely detached. I think it's an incredible story. Today we can't. I don't think I'll be able to detach with my iPhone for more than 5 minutes, let alone giving my life for something. So I think the story needed to be told, and that's how we kind of, the whole family got on board instantly. And it was almost like a payback for my father for, he comes from Punjab and he started from scratch in Bombay. Me and my sister actually grew up on bunker beds. Me and my sister actually pretty much spent our entire childhood growing up in a kitchen. That's a small little apartment that we grew up in.
Wow.
And, God's been kind, I have a room to myself today.
Wonderful.
So I guess, it was his payback to, give back from his roots, from where he came from.
What's incredible about this is that the conceptual framework of this movie must have been a mammoth task for you.
Yeah.
Because historical facts have got to be ratified by various sources.
True.
And people in positions of power and authority, they feel that they would have their own interpretation of history. Tell me about the skills involved and the process involved. How did you manage to overcome all these obstacles?
Well, I think the primary skill here would be patience. Honest to God, it would just be patience. From the point we started, we obviously got in touch with the SGPC, which is the Shiromani Gurdwara Prabandhak Committee, and then the Akal Takht.
And they're an extremely conservative organization.
Any religious outfit, which is a custodian of a religion is bound to be orthodox, because they're really closed about the religion, the religion, and they're extremely conservative. So the idea was to break into that, is to sort of make them understand as to why we feel there is a need to make this film. Which took us a while. It takes a while to sort of climb up the ladder, meet the right people, then bring them on board. And then the struggle started with the limitations that were put in front of us. Obviously the first thing was that we know as a rule that no human being can either impersonate or be the voice of
Right.
any of our Guru Sahibs. We have
Right.
10 Gurus in Sikhism, starting
Right.
from Guru Nanak Dev Ji to Guru Gobind Singh Ji.
Right.
Then we were told that neither Guru Sahib's 4 sons can be impersonated. So we said, okay, then animation is the only way forward.
Wow.
Unfortunately, animation is not really understood well by people who are not well exposed to animation. They think of it as cartoon.
Oh.
Now the word cartoon is got a comical,
Yeah.
it's got a comical approach to it.
Right,
Animation
right.
doesn't necessarily mean comical.
Right.
So we had to break that barrier first to make them understand that, listen, we're talking animation here. So we actually took DVDs of films, made in the West, Pixar and Disney films, to make them
Right.
understand the difference.
पीड़ तो बचा के नैनी लुका के पानी
And then they understood that. Then we started working on the animation of the 4 main characters, which would be the Chaar Sahibzaade.
Right.
Once we made them, we tried to make them as real as possible.
Right.
I must tell you, it's a funny anecdote. Finally, when we showed them the 4, the pictures and the videos of those 4 characters, and they were like, "These are actors. This isn't animated." So we're like, "No, trust us. This is animated." They're like,
Yeah.
"No, you told us it's going to be animation." So then we had to show them the grayscales
Yeah.
of the before and after, which we had to call in from Bombay, and we were sitting down in Amritsar waiting for 3 days,
Yeah.
and showed it to them, and they're like, then they bought the fact that, okay, fine, they said there are no actors involved, this is pure animation.
Right.
So there's a bit of, I would say, these are conservative people who,
Right.
who are custodians of the religion,
Right.
but their exposure to the world is obviously much lesser compared to someone like you and me.
Right.
But then again, on the good side of it is that they were so supportive.
Wonderful.
They were extremely supportive till the point of release now.
Excellent.
They've, in fact, I think just yesterday my father was in Punjab and he was with Makkar Saab and Khalsa Ji. They're the 2, I would say, the most important people who are part of the Sikh Federation and SGPC. And they watched the film with my father again for the 5th time, I think.
Excellent.
And they released a statement out to the press, almost to the extent saying that, we wish we had done this earlier. You
Wow.
know. And we thank the family for taking this effort, and so in a way I think it's great that my dad actually took that initiative. In a way I think the way we've been brought up, which is me and my sister, through our parents, that we sort of supported him in this, on the front foot, rather than saying, oh come on, it's so tough, why are we doing it? We were always very excited about it, saying let's go for it as a family, and it feels good.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ
खामोश
Tell me about the technical aspects of this film, because you've mastered this art, by the way, I must say, because it's very difficult. Animation is not easy.
Yeah, it's not.
So tell me about the work that went behind this animation concept.
Well, I think as I said, animation for us was almost a necessity. It wasn't something by choice. But I'm thankful that it is, because I've learned so much along the way.
Sure.
Dad is someone who's been very, very forthcoming when it comes to technology in cinema.
Right.
I'll point out a few things, which I actually found out because I was researching, and we had to, I think, pass this on to somebody in the West,
Right.
some Hollywood company, and they asked us for the company profile. And while I was writing, I was like, Dad, you realize you've always been ahead of times? And he's like, what do you mean? So the first ever film that's been digitally created in Indian cinema was actually Qayamat in 2003. Then we were the first ones to convert 16mm films and blow them into 35mm anamorphic for worldwide release. It was a film called Karam.
मेरी डायरी लिखने पर जॉन हंसते थे कहते थे कि बीते दिन भूलने के लिए होते हैं
Way back in I think 97, we did a TV show which used graphics for the first time, where we had a character who was just a head in the whole series. So green screen, which is very common today.
Right.
We'd used it in TV probably 20 years back.
Wow.
So and then of course came Love Story 2050, which was very high on special effects, and we had Weta and Rising Sun and all these.
Well, you were nominated for Filmfare Award. In
Yes,
that.
exactly.
A search through time.
So and then from there we come to animation today.
Right.
And I think from our end, I think we've done the best we could. Unfortunately, animation is in its nascent stage back home in India. It isn't really one of the mainstream genres, or formats for that matter. But I think given the budgetary constraints that we had, I think we put in 100%. We've barely got 1% of the budgets people have in the West. The Pixars of the world and the Disneys of the world. But I think we're sort of somewhere halfway there. And I think we need more support from the fraternity.
Tell me about your dad first. Before we
Yes.
come to your films,
Of course.
I want to speak about your father and your mother.
Absolutely, yeah.
One of them is a film producer, successful, and the other one is a film director, very successful. What is it like growing up in that background? And also tell me about the roots there.
Well, I mean, let's put it this way. My childhood was spent on dinner table, lunch table conversations, midnight quarrels between my parents, which were only about cinema.
Right.
So if I ever remember my parents fighting at night, they were only fighting about mum's cribbing that you were supposed to finish the scene today. You've still overshot. My dad's like, don't teach me how to direct a film. So this is what I grew up hearing. And me and my sister would be holed up inside that kitchen room of ours saying, they're fighting. And we're like, well, what are they fighting about? So that's my first exposure to cinema and saying, oh my God, filmmaking looks really scary. Makes my parents fight. But from that point on to obviously growing up, I obviously got involved. It's a very fascinating business to be a part of, very difficult, very challenging, but very fascinating at the same time. Though strangely, by the time I was 15, 16, I actually wanted to do hotel management. So I actually went, at the age of 16, went away to Switzerland. That's when my dad actually made his produced his first film called Dilwale with Ajay Devgn and Sunil Shetty, which, by the grace of God, was a blockbuster. So we suddenly had a lot of money at home. So here I am on my first ever, international flight to Switzerland, doing hotel management, and a year later, I'm back home with a transfer certificate saying, I don't want to do hotel management, I want to do films.
Oh, wonderful.
And I think extremely supportive, as you were saying, upbringing, by my parents, that, I don't think once my father or my mother sat me down and said that, why did you go to Switzerland? And, of course, it's a criminal waste of money, even though they say education never goes waste, but really, learning how to serve is not really helping me in my life today. But the experience of living there alone, yes, for sure. But, they've been very supportive. Their entire mindset was that we want you to go ahead and do what you feel good. At the end of the day, that's what matters and that's what you'll excel at, And I think I was, as a kid, me and my sister were both very cut off from people, in the film business, so to speak. I mean, if I was to count my closest buddies, practically leaving one person aside who's now from the film business, whom I met in the past 10, 15 years, there isn't a friend of mine who actually belongs to the film business whom I would count as a close friend. They're either all IT professionals or, the cliche chartered accountant boys or family business boys and stuff like that. And, that's because the environment was such, was kept away, kept very aloof, because they, I don't know, maybe they didn't want us to get spoiled. I don't know, the perception of being from the film business means that you're a spoiled brat. I think ours was a very lower middle class family upbringing, and I think somewhere that helps you to keep yourself very grounded and very rooted, because it is a volatile business.
Yep.
You're high up there one weekend, and then the next weekend no one's really looking at you and no one wants to talk about you. So I think somewhere your roots kind of help you to just keep yourself grounded and keep yourself real about the fact that this business is something that you're going to face with.
It's fascinating. Your very first film, you were nominated for a Filmfare Award.
Yes.
That doesn't happen too often.
Yes.
But it was made by
my father. Yes.
Your father.
Yes.
Tell us about that film.
Well, I think the first film is always the first film. It's closest to your heart.
Right.
Though I'd say Chaar Sahibzaade comes closest to my heart now because of the topic that we're in.
Right.
But yes, Love Story 2050 is always going to be the closest film to my heart. It was my first film. A very difficult film. I always tell my dad, you put me on a lot of pressure. A, you made a terribly expensive film, and suddenly it's the pressure's on me to deliver the film. B, it was a special effects film. So literally half the film I've shot with green screens, with no actors, with a robot which doesn't exist, which is going to be created in post-production, or a robot which is animatronics. And I'm sitting here and saying, this is my first film. People find it hard to just manage to do your first film, right? Here you're throwing all these external factors on me, and you're taking me down. But I think I enjoyed the challenge. I've been a film student. I went to UCLA Film School before I actually shot this film. I was there for 2.5 years. So I think I enjoyed the challenge. And once again, that was a family effort. Actually, my mom was obviously part of it. Dad, the whole team was at it. So in a way, I think for me, as a person that I am, it's always been about the journey, and which is what I enjoy. For me, it's never about the end result.
Another sports that's close to my heart. I love cricket.
Yeah.
You did a fantastic film in which you featured some of the top cricket stars, and it was very timely because the cricket craze was tremendously spreading all over India and around the world.
Yeah.
So tell us about that venture, the
Well, I think once again, what I take back from that film really is, I must tell you a few things. I've actually played at the SCG, which is the Sydney Cricket Ground.
Wow.
I've actually faced the entire Aussie bowling attack.
Wow.
On the SCG main pitch. When there was the Border Gavaskar series that happens towards the end of the year.
Yes, yes.
So they were playing the Border Gavaskar series, and I remember I had to fly down on the 1st of January, which I was really upset about because that messed up my New Year plans. But then my director told me, well, hey, listen, if you actually fly on the 1st, I'll make you play on the main pitch.
Wow.
And I was like, you know, New Year's comes every year. This is a once in a lifetime. And I remember landing into Sydney early morning, and I was driven straight down to the pitch. And I was actually batting and facing Brett Lee and a couple of other, you know, bowlers.
You have faced Brett Lee?
Brett Lee, let me recall. Brett Lee, there was Mitchell Johnson.
My God.
Yeah, there was this other tall dude I keep forgetting, mate rather, because he's Aussie. Yes, I don't remember his name. But yeah, so these were guys whom I was facing.
Right.
And, you know, and then all through the film.
These guys are, you know, incredibly fast-paced bowlers. You know,
they're nuts.
So you were a batsman then?
I was a batsman in the film.
Oh.
Yeah, I had to face them.
Right.
Trust me, I had these blotch marks all over my body through and through the shooting of that film because, you know, these guys can get really competitive. Even though they know they're filming.
Yeah.
If you happen to whack them for a shot, if you just happen to whack them for a shot, they're just coming for your ribs.
Wow.
And the best thing about the Aussies was they would sledge me during shooting. And I was looking at them and said, you guys know we are shooting, right? We're all paid for here. Nothing is real.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, but mate, just so one of the things was that I was supposed to swing.
Yeah.
And my director had given me instructions saying that if you middle the ball,
yeah,
then we'll use this part of the shot for your upswing in the career in the film.
Right.
If you swing and you miss, you know, then we're going to use it for the time when you start losing your focus and you're the party boy, and that's what my image in the film was.
Right.
So he said, either way, we get a shot, so just swing.
Right.
And once in a while, I would swing.
Yeah.
You know, I trained under Praveen Ambre for almost 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah, it was practically every day, morning, evening, we would do 3 hours. So obviously, I was training 6 hours a day.
Right.
So I sort of got the basic gist of getting my, you know, body language right and everything. So I would end up middling the ball once in a while, and then they would get really vengeful. Because then they would come for my ribs, and then you'd have Haddon screaming at me saying, brother, go for it, mate, get his ribs, get his toes. And I'd be like, no, we're shooting. But, you know, then I shot with the whole Sri Lankan team. I'd faced Muralidharan. Yeah, and you know, shot with Sangakkara, shot with Sanachai Surya, shot with a couple of, I don't know, South African players, all the Morkel brothers. And,
wow.
You know, I don't know how many teams I shot with. The English players.
Right.
And, yeah, quite a few countries.
But it's fantastic. But you were so versatile that you were able to do different roles. What's Your Raashee became a big hit. Yeah. That you and Priyanka Chopra in that film, am I correct?
Yeah.
So tell me about that venture.
Well, I must tell you the story behind the venture. That was fun. So here I am. I haven't even had a release of a film yet. And I get this call. So the guy who was editing Victory was an editor called Ballu Saluja who had edited Lagan for Mr. Gowarikar.
Oh, wow.
Right, and so obviously Ballu was witness to all my rushes at Victory, and he knew Ashu sir very well, Ashutosh Gowarikar. So he called up Ashutosh Gowarikar saying, I know of this new kid, and he's apparently really good, blah, blah, blah. And he said, okay, great. So the next thing I know, I'm shooting in Delhi, I don't remember for which film, and I get a call, and you know, it's one of those numbers you don't know, so you don't pick up the call. You know, and then after about an hour or so, I see a message saying, hey, this is Ashutosh Gowarikar, please call. And I'm like, are you kidding me? How did I miss this call? So then I call him back, you know, and he says, listen, I've heard really good things and I would love to meet you and blah, blah, blah. So of course I said, I'm coming back to Bombay. I went and met him. He came to the office, very, very kind on his part to offer to come to the office. He saw a bit of my rushes of love story. And, you know, he said he'd get back to me. And then one fine day he called me over, met me, and he said, okay, listen, you know, we had a certain character in mind, but unfortunately you don't really fit it 100%.
Yeah.
So, but nevertheless, best of luck, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I'll get back to you if ever. So I'm like, all right, no problem. You know, I met Ashutosh Gowarikar and I'm happy. And, you know, in the process, we were in touch. So I sort of felt like, okay, he said that to me, but I think I have a 50-50 chance of bagging this one. And I remember I was shooting nights, and I wake up. So when you're shooting nights, you got to pack up in the morning. So when I wake up at about 2:33 in the afternoon, I happen to see 2 missed calls. You see, so I'm sitting and saying, so I'm suddenly my mind's working overtime, and I'm sitting and saying, why would he give me 2 missed calls? If he really wanted to have a conversation, it would be 1. But if it's probably something that he wants to really tell me, it's 2. So I basically go back, and I've just woken up. Like, I'm in deep slumber. I'm like, hello. So I'm like, Ashu, sir, you called? He's like, yes, Harman. Okay, so listen, I need to tell you something. I said, yeah, okay, we've been thinking a lot. We've gone through everything in our heads, and, you know, you're on. We're doing What's Your Raashee together. So I was like, okay, that's fantastic. He said, are you free? When can you meet me? So I'm like, I'll see you in half an hour. So he's like, didn't you just wake up? I was like, yeah. He said, well, take a shower, freshen up, eat something, see me in an hour. I remember telling him, no, I don't want you to change your mind. So I'm going to be there in half an hour before you change your mind and call someone else up. So yeah, and for me, I think that was a big high. And he was a man who made Lagan. And it was a very challenging film once again. You know, I think I kind of like that. I like the whole idea of doing films which are a little off genres, off the regular stuff. And yeah, I think working with him has probably been one of my finest experiences in this industry so far.
आपका favorite star कौन है? Tom Cruise.
Tom and Jerry.
Tell me about this.
Dishkiyaoon?
Yeah.
I want you to say it.
Dishkiyaoon.
That's right. That's it. You're bang on. It'll come handy in life sometime.
Sure. Dishkiyaoon. Right. Okay.
So well, Dishkiyaoon was one of those. So I was in film school. I remember I mentioned to you earlier. You know, and Martin Scorsese as a director is someone whom I was very, very fascinated by. So pretty much all his films, all the way from Taxi Driver to his last one, you know, I've been a big fan of his work. And in came the script of Dishkiyaoon, which actually came to me as a short film by this new writer-director called Sanamjit Talwar. And he came to me with a short film saying, hey, I know you do all these Bollywood big films, and he came through a friend's reference, but I just need like 2 days of you, and I have this short film that I want to make for festivals and this and that. And I said, okay, what is it? Quickly tell me. And he narrated the whole idea to me, and I said, you know, brother, I personally don't think this deserves to be a short film. This has potential to be a feature. So he said, yeah, but I don't know if I work on it, and then after I work on it, you'll turn around and say, oh, I don't like it anymore, I'm not doing it. I'll end up wasting my time. I said, you know, if not me, somebody else would do it, but have faith in yourself. You're the one who wrote this. I'm sure you'll be able to write a good feature. So he said, promise me if the feature is as good as the short, you'll do the film. I said, I promise you, as long as it's as good as the short. And he came back to me after 3 months, and I really loved what I read. And then started the process of working on that film. Now, that was a gangster. It was the mean side. He wanted me to get all lean, you know, with the six-pack and all that. Yeah, I'm much of a foodie. I'm a sturdy boy, Sardar Munda. I love food. Suddenly, I had to start shedding off all my butter chickens of the world, and no more biryanis, no more parathas, no more white makhan. And here I was eating egg whites all day and training like a maniac. Try to meet a few people whom I know were like gangsters or being gangsters through people, you know, just try to figure out what they really do. It was honestly a very exciting process. There was lots of action in the film. I did a lot of stunts myself. I've busted myself twice during the shoot of that film. I've been bed rested for almost three months twice in that film.
Wow.
I insist on doing the stunts myself. I don't know why. Kind of get the rush out of it. But I kind of like the role. You know, for me to do something which was very edgy, sort of grey, you know, bring about the mean side, you know, which all my friends, especially my family, were very happy to see. They were like, you know, finally we get to see the mean side of you, because, you know, we're only used to seeing this, you know, nice, boring boy next door, and, you know, we know you have that bad side, but we've never seen it. So I'll go watch this show, you'll see my dirty side coming out. But I kind of enjoyed that film.
मैं एक gangster हूँ.
अगले Friday तक जिंदा रहे, so we can go for a drink or something.
You know, you're very versatile. You could go from one mood to another. In addition to stunt scenes, you're extremely good in romantic scenes. You've done some tremendous romantic scenes in films as well.
In person as well.
In person. I believe that. I'll come to that as well. Maybe you can elaborate on that.
Just your foot in the mouth here.
Yeah, you did it. Now, I didn't ask you, so now you can tell me about Bipasha Basu then, you know. So there's been a lot of, you know, when you become popular, paparazzis will follow you all over.
Naturally.
You're a handsome guy, so obviously, needless to say, you know, there's, you know, several girls are interested in you. Among them, if one of them is a celebrity, naturally there's a tremendous interest in the community. So tell me about, you know, that interaction.
Well, I think it's you know, whether you call it a professional byproduct is that, you know, if you're in the fraternity and you're in the limelight, you know, you know, you could go out to coffee with a friend, and if she's a non-celebrity and you're a non-celebrity, you could have coffee with her 5 times in a week and no one's going to bother you. And here you can just meet somebody for 15 minutes outside a coffee shop, happen to just bump into them, and you'll be over the papers the next day saying, oh, spotted having coffee, you know, at 12 a.m, blah, blah, blah. So I think these things are sort of part and parcel of where you come from.
What's the major change that you have seen in the film industry between your dad's generation days and your days now?
Well, I think there is a massive shift. Honestly, thanks to, you know, I mean, globalization is a very macro word, you know, but definitely with you know, even as recent as 5 years back, you know, cinema in India has just evolved, especially because the exposure to the West has gone up so high. You know, and honestly, you know, the audience evolves based on what they're given. So if you take a set of people and you keep giving them regressive cinema
Yeah.
over a period of time, they're
Yeah.
going to start believing that is what is good. They're going to make the best of what they get.
Right.
You know, and suddenly you had India here, which just opened up to the West
Yeah.
so beautifully with the mushrooming of multiplexes and, you know, the economic boom.
Right.
They're suddenly opening up to a lot of good cinema
Yeah.
from the West. You
Yeah.
know, and the West is obviously ahead of us in terms of its content writing, in terms of technology, in terms of every way, because they're
Right.
ahead of us in terms of cinema.
Right.
You know, and I think that brought about the change here, because suddenly here are filmmakers who were earlier considered to be filmmakers who were niche filmmakers
Right.
or artistic filmmakers,
Right.
suddenly have become mainstream filmmakers because the audiences opened their minds to receiving these films.
Fascinating.
You know, and that's the change. I mean, films like Barfi, for example,
Right.
you know, till 5 years back, Barfi would be an art film made only for critics and for the gentry, as they would call it.
Yeah.
You know, today Barfi belongs to the so to speak new 100 crore club that's in the business, but Barfi belongs there. It's an outright success.
Harman, you are extremely eloquent in your communication.
Yes.
One of the few who can become a real ambassador of the Indian film industry around the world. What would be the message that you would want to convey in the Western world right now about Indian cinema?
Well, I would like to say, you know, there has been, I won't say there has been a rather strange little profiling that Indian cinema has had in the West. And when I'm saying West, I'm talking Hollywood strictly, you know, or European cinema. You know, where they've had this whole thing that Indian films is all about dancing and singing around trees, and you know, that's a mindset that people have had. You know, there is no question that's what we were, and there's still a part of it that still exists in that realm of space. But there is a whole new wave of cinema and filmmakers that is coming about. You know, be it Anurag Basu, Anurag Kashyap, you know, Abhishek Kapoor. There are lots of new age directors who are coming out with really good cinema, and I feel that now it's time for the West to sort of give Indian cinema a fair chance. You know, to sort of be given that credibility and sort of being looked at with a little bit more respect. And I think it's probably just a matter of a few films. It's a matter of a few more years at best, and you know, you will see, I feel, that beautiful transition of Indian cinema transitioning into world cinema. I think we're close.
Your outstanding accomplishment through this new venture,
Yes.
the 3D animation.
Chaar Sahibzaade.
What would you want people around the world? What would you like from them towards, you know, in terms of patronage of that particular film?
Well, I think Chaar Sahibzaade is a film which is purely made from the heart. You know, there is no economics to it. There is no financial report that we made before or business plan, so to speak. I just feel that it's a beautiful story. It's part of Indian history, and it's the kind of story that deserves to be told. You know, and I think needs to be seen. And I think we've done the best we could.
That's
and
wonderful.
I'll leave the rest to everybody else to decide and watch it for themselves.
That's wonderful. Looks like you come from an extremely illustrious family. Please convey my regards to your family and your parents.
for sure.
Is your sister is also involved in the film industry?
My sister, yes, she's actually writing and should be directing anytime.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, yeah.
Well, what can we expect from Harman in the next, say,
Well,
3 years?
I'm 3 years. I'm not much of a planner. I could tell you what I'm doing for the next 3 days.
Okay. Okay.
But I kind of just go with my energy and instincts. But I think I'm doing a film. It's a beautiful comedy, very very funny, but with a strong message. And I'm writing a few things.
Oh.
Yeah. So should be getting into production very soon. I won't be acting in those. I'm just writing and producing those. So yeah, my sister's going to be directing her film soon. Dad's on to his next one. I don't know what he's going to do next. Only God knows. It's a secret. So I think, yeah, there's lots happening in the family. There's lots happening around. So fingers crossed. I think for anyone who's not been to your studio needs to come here to know what ATN really means. I mean, for me, I've always heard of ATN. I've been traveling so much, so I've always heard. But to sort of see all the accomplishments that you and your way better half has made, I think there's lots of respect and lots more coming your way. I think you've done great for the community here, and I think kudos to you, I would say.
Awfully nice of you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks again, and please convey our sincere regards to your parents as well. Okay, we're very proud of you.
Thank you.